Buenos Cameron Diaz, welcome to pedroTV. Welcome again to Index Project Artspace in St. Peter's. It's a great pleasure to meet Ginette Snow. How are you?
Well, thanks, Peter. Nice to meet you too.
Jeanette's got a photographic show called Just Families. Can you explain the title?
Well, these are families that have same-sex parents, and in this show, I want to show the similarities when compared with these families with heterosexual families. So all I'm saying is they're just families. Have a look at them. That's it. That's the reason.
And how did you find them?
Well, there's a story behind it, and it involves my son Tom. Tom and his partner Brooke have a family, obviously from the photograph, but they've gone through surrogacy, and I can tell you something about that. But on the day that they were born, I was in the foyer of the San Diego hospital. They went to the States to do the surrogacy, and they'd gone up to the delivery room with the surrogate and the surrogate's husband, and I was just waiting around with other expected friends and parents and what have you. And in walks these two guys, and I looked at them and I thought, maybe. And then they started talking. They had Australian accents. And I thought, it's just too much of a coincidence. I've got to ask them. So I went over and I introduced myself, and sure enough, they were a gay couple, and they were having twins the very same day. So later in the day, when the four Australian dads were in the nursery with these four new babies, and they were marvelling over their little miracles and how gorgeous they were and all of that sort of thing, I was taking photographs of my grandchildren. I offered to take some photographs of their children when they left the hospital, which was only 24 hours later, and I did that over there. But then when I got home, I thought, I think I'll do a series. And I had that contact, so I asked them if I could come and photograph them in Brisbane, which I did. Yeah, so that's how it all started. I know it's a long story.
No, that's an amazing story. These are twin boys.
No. This is a little girl, Sibylla, and this is Angus.
Okay, so they're not twins.
Yes, well, they are twins.
Okay.
They are twins, but they have separate fathers. They have different fathers. So what happens is you have a surrogate, you have an egg donor, and you have a sperm which divide in two bits and fertilise, and then an embryo from each is put into the surrogate. So they're actually So they have different fathers.
Okay.
But they have the same surrogate and the same egg donor. So in fact, really, technically, they are half brothers and sisters, and they're twins. So it's a little complicated, but it's so lovely. It's a lovely story.
It is, and can we? Yeah.
Yes.
Explain or talk about another?
Yes. Why don't I? No, let me think. Which one will I tell you about? Why don't we come and have a look at this one? This is a family who live in Sydney, and they're lesbian girls. They've been together 16 years, and about 8 or 9 years ago, they decided they'd have two babies, two children. They'd like to have one from each. Each of them wanted to have a child, but the first time when one of them conceived, it was identical twin boys, and so they already had the two children, but they went ahead and they had another one. Now they had a good friend who was the donor sperm, and he's the dad. They call him Dad, and they see a lot of him. He's a great friend of the family, and because these families are a little bit different, they're very aware of it. They make sure that in the community, that they in the school, that they take a big active role. So other people at school can see them as a family, get to know them, and say, right, you're okay. Well, yes, we'll accept you. So they're working hard at it.
What I want to ask you is the process. When you meet these people,
Yep.
All the photographs seem very relaxed, candid.
Yes.
How do you achieve that?
Well, I didn't want it to be a portrait. I always think a portrait is something to do with the person who takes the photograph, could stand here, do this, do that. What I wanted was natural photographs, and I wanted to include a lot of detail, a lot of who they are, and so I used a wide-angle lens, and I introduced a little bit of light, not in this one, but because it's actually outside, this part here.
Oh, okay.
So there's detail, there's their whole life, and I just said, I said to the children, now these are photographs, you don't have to look at me and smile. And they sort of think, great, you know. You just go around, play, do what you want to do, and I'll just sit in the background and take photographs. So they did, and the sessions were about 2.5 hours, something like that. So after a while, they do settle down and forget I'm there, so they're doing their own thing, and so that's how they look natural. Hopefully they look natural.
They're great.
Now, let's talk about that one. Now, why don't we come around and I'll tell you about which one? This one here. This is a couple, a Sydney couple, and they are the first dads. They were the first dads to foster a child so young. This boy was 2 when they fostered him, and they have also. And about 2 years ago, they went through the adoption process. Now, they are also the first gay couple that the judge knew that this child, this foster child, was going to be adopted by a gay couple, a male gay couple, and they weren't legally allowed to be both of them fathers at that stage, because at that stage the legislation only allowed one of them to adopt. So at that stage, only one of them adopted. But although they weren't recognised as a couple, so although the judge knew the child was going to a gay family. Only one of them's father. Now, since then, the legislation has passed so that gay couples can adopt, and now the other dad is applying to become a dad as well, to adopt the child. Yeah. So there we go. So why don't we go on to this family? Now, this is a family in Victoria, and they were telling me, they've been together about 16 years, and they were telling me that when they decided to have children, they arranged, I think it was a donor sperm, somebody I didn't know, but they got to know him, and they spent every second weekend talking to this chap and getting to know him. He was getting to know them. They talked about things like education, schooling, that's the same. What religion, what they did at Christmas, what they did in their activities, everything about how these children are going to be brought up, and they even discussed what the children were to call them. So we have mum, we have mama, and we have dad. Now, and this dad, he has taken a very active role in the boys. He takes them out together and he takes them out separately. So he's got a strong relationship with each of them, and it works very well. And they're also very aware that they're a little bit different, and they tend to mix with people who are accepting, so it make it easy for the kids. Got another one to show you. Now this one over here. This one, I love this photo because it's so full of love. Any little girl, wouldn't you love to be loved like that? That is just fabulous. So when I walked in, they're from Victoria. When I walked into their home, and they said to me, "What do you want us to do?" And I said, "Well, just do what you normally do on a Saturday morning. But do you play games with her? Do you play in the garden, or is it morning tea?" And they said, "Oh, we have morning tea." And I thought we were going to the kitchen, get out and stuff. But in fact, they go onto the floor, get out the pink plastic cups and saucers, and they have a tea party. And in this room, there's so many photographs I want to show of this. I can only show one. They had the weights on one side of the room. They had the doll's house and the little girly things on the other. And it was such a mixture of differences. And she is so loved. Now they went to India to find a surrogate, and they've tried. They've had 5 attempts, and they have this little girl who's 2 years old, and the others have failed. They'd very much like for her to have a sibling, but they've mortgaged their house and they've run out of money. It's very expensive. Now in India, one of them gets on the birth certificate. So when they came back to Australia, they started making applications for the other one to get on there. And in Victoria, unlike New South Wales, they haven't changed their legislation. so they can't both adopt the little girl. Whereas if you're a lesbian couple, you can adopt. So they think it's a little bit unfair, and they're working on their local member to try and rectify this. Now, so with Tom, my son, when he in the States, when those twins were born, they're both on the birth certificate. So they didn't have that problem when they came home. They just had to get the naturalisation.
Can I ask you, is the Indian mother, is she on the birth certificate?
I don't think so. I don't know. I didn't ask about that. Sorry.
Okay.
Yeah, the only question you asked me, I don't know the answer.
Well, I must be doing something right.
But yes. So and
well, I mean, it's a whole thing with adopted, fostered. It's still the case. The child decides if they want to meet their biological parents one day, isn't it? Yes. So it's
yes. Yes, and in fact, I mean, I can tell you my personal stuff. In the States, you can stay friendly with the surrogate mother, and Tom and Brooke will stay friendly. I mean, we got to know all the family. They welcomed them to the house. They welcomed me when I went over. We had Easter together. It was quite extraordinary. It was a whole family. It was very much a gift from one family to another. Her and her husband, gifted this child, and because they went through it together. Now in India, they don't encourage the friendship, so that it's definitely a financial deal, and that's it. And once the baby's born, you don't have contact with the surrogate anymore. Yeah. Yes.
Any more?
Hey?
Any more you want to talk about?
Let me think now. I can tell you a little bit about this one, and a little bit about this one. I'll tell you a little bit about this one, because this one I know this girl. This girl's a friend of. They're a Sydney family, and she's the girl on the right has been a childhood friend of my older daughter, and she also when she decided to have children, they asked one of their friends would they be the dad, and they also went into the process of talking. And this is what there seems to be with these lesbians. They really get to know the person who's going to be the father, and whereas with the surrogates, it's very much that side of it has to be a business deal. They get to know them. I'm not saying they don't get to know them, but they don't seem to get to know the egg donor. They more to get to know the surrogate. Whereas in the girl's situation, they get to know the dad. And I was chatting to my daughter last night about this, because we were talking.
You spoke at the MCO?
I spoke at the MCO last night, and I was telling my older daughter this, and we were discussing what I was going to talk about. And I was talking about the girls and the process of going through talking to the donor for so long, and talking about so many issues. And this girl, who's her girlfriend, she said, "Oh yes, I remember when Pip was doing all this, and I just and my older daughter by this time had 3 children, and this one's got none. And she said, for goodness sake, just get on to it. Stop talking about it. So it's so easy for us, we just have, easy for heterosexual, one night and that's it, pregnant. Whereas it is such a process for these people to have children, and they really want children. They really work hard to make it work. These are lovely, warm, friendly families, the same chaos, but they've got all the same problems, and there's so much love in these families. I think what those doctors said, apparently remember they said they're not so sure that these children are going to work out. This is a report about some doctors a few weeks back, and what I understand is that's not show. There's some studies that show it completely the opposite. But from what I see stable families. I see families that are trying to work, and sure, they might get a little bit of hard time at school at times, and so do other kids for other reasons, But they've got a strong family background. So look, I think they're going to work.
Thank you very much.
Yep. Thanks, Peter.
The photographs convey that.
Yeah.
So congratulations.
Thank you.